Hello, fellow risk takers, and welcome to my worst investment ever. Stories of loss to keep you winning. In our community, we know that to win in investing, you must take risk, but to win big, you've got to reduce it. To join our community for free, go to myworstinvestmentever.com and receive the risk reduction checklist I've created from the lessons I've learned from all of my guests, and get my weekly email to help you increase your investment return. Also, in the community, you can get a super special podcast listener discount on my 6-week valuation masterclass boot camp. In the boot camp, you can learn how to value companies like a pro and advance your career in finance. Go to myworstinvestmentever.com to join our community for free. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotts from A Stotts Academy, and I'm here with featured guests, Muhammad Imdadul Islam. I'm gonna ask you, are you ready to rock?
Yes, absolutely. Andrew, thank you very much for having me. I'm really very excited to be here today.
Yeah. And I was talking with you before the show that sometimes, I have a hard time with names and I'm trying to learn how to pronounce everybody's names, but I'm going to call you Imdad.
Yes, sure. Absolutely. This sounds perfect. It's my nickname, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So Imdad is a nice name. And, in Thailand, names are so long that
really
everybody has a nickname. So somebody, and a funny nickname that you hear sometimes is someone's called Uwan. Uwan means fat, fatty. Hey, fatty.
Oh, really?
And then they have other nicknames like, Bird, Knock, and other types of nicknames. But they have a lot of fun. And my best Thai friend and my business partner, he's such a master in Excel, and he made his life out of Excel, basically his career. So when he had his son, he called him nickname Excel.
Okay, interesting.
So let me introduce you to the audience. Imdad is a business strategist, a speaker, and a collaborator. He collaborates with CEOs, CXOs, sales leaders, realtors, and financial advisors to help them grow via personal branding, social selling, and employee advocacy. Imdad, take a minute and fill in further tidbits about your life.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you again, Andrew. So what is happening that I have actually studied finance in one of the best universities over here in Bangladesh. So when I was in, the first year, I just wanted to be exactly the same guy like you, honestly speaking. Since I was in finance, so what was happening that I started learning more about finance, more about CFAs, career in stock market and everything. So that's, the fascinating stuff. But before, it was not before I got into third year. So what happened that my focus started shifting a little bit from the core finance to more into the business, more into a little bit of entrepreneurship. Down the line, I started working, got to know a lot of, accounting professionals, finance professionals from different programs and from different events, and some of the works I had the opportunity to work with them as well. So what happened that down the line, I came up with a chartered accountant over here in Bangladesh. He was an ACCA professional. So, and by the way, I was also deeply involved in corporate training as well at very early age, because I had a little bit fascination for the language English. Over here, in Bangladesh, a lot of people suffer out of it. Since I had a little bit advantage, although I won't say I'm so good at it, but a little bit. So I used to go ahead and do it. So yeah, down the line, I started going ahead and coming up with working with a lot of professionals. And I came up with one of my accounting firm as well when I was in the third grade, partnering with a chartered accountant. It helped me actually to go ahead and work with a lot of entrepreneurs, learn from their problems, go ahead and how do they do things, what are the problems they face and everything. So that actually kind of, a shift in my career. So from the core finance, I started thinking as an entrepreneur and working as an entrepreneur. So yeah, this is how it went ahead, and later on I started doing some of the stuff that I have already mentioned. So that's a little brief, you can say, I can give about how it turned out.
Interesting. When I started to be an analyst in 1993,
yes.
I didn't know much about anything, so I was just studying hard. I had my head down. I was reading everything I could. I was taking the CFA exam. I was doing all those things. And I was wondering, why some people rise higher and faster and further than others. And as I studied it as an analyst, I'm analyzing everything I see. I started to see there was a couple of core things. The first thing I talked to you about before we turned on the recorder was authenticity. Whenever
Yes.
anybody talked to me, I was just authentic. I wasn't trying to put on a show or anything like that. The second thing is I was willing to reveal personal situations that I faced. And when I did that about my own businesses I had in Thailand, while I was an analyst, I was investing in other businesses. And I
Yeah.
think the fund managers around the world really appreciated that I was authentic and that I would share some personal stories. And then the third thing that I learned was that if you're not a great presenter, it doesn't matter how great you think you are or your ideas are if you can't
Absolutely.
get them out.
Absolutely.
And so I decided to really become an expert in that area. And I think that when you talk about helping people with their branding and the social
Yes.
media presence and all that, truthfully, it's not that complicated. If they
Yes.
follow someone like you and say, let's just set a path, get started, and move in this direction, I think you can add a lot of value that I had to figure out on my own. And it took me years to get it, but I suspect you can take someone there much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like you see that I have seen, what happens that we since I had the opportunity to work with some accounting and finance professionals, what happens that we actually deny very harshly to go beyond the numbers initially. Of course, like people in your level, you guys are boss, of course.
Mhm.
But what happens that like if I talk about myself, when I was in the first year, I was thinking like, okay, fine, finance, accounting, all about crunching numbers. So I don't really need anything out of numbers. So all I need is just go ahead, crunch numbers and get the decision, analyze it. That's it, boom. And truth be told, I hated literary marketing. I hate the core thing that I do because I was thinking like finance is the best subject over here. I am studying finance. I had this ego problem. But down the line, when I started my business, I learned that, oh my God, marketing is like everything. I need to make sales. It doesn't matter how good my product or service is, or let's say how much good analysis I come out with. If I cannot go ahead and pitch to the investor, if I cannot make them believe in my ideas, I'm going to suck. Nobody's going to buy. Yeah. So
Amen. That is so true.
okay, so and the same problem that was my problem first, and I solved it for myself. I'm spending years, and I still see there are a lot of ACCAs, CFAs, accounting professionals, ACAs over here. They're very good at what they do.
Yep.
All they need is a little bit of ways to go ahead and leverage their idea to actually pitch before the investor, their community, or the guys they want to work into. And of course, there are better ways to go ahead and do it due to the blessing of social media.
Yep.
It's not about just going ahead and if I'm not wrong, I listened to one of your podcasts where you were mentioning a girl was coming to you and for advising you on investment, and they actually offer investment advice to expats, so they were coming to you. So of course you see that it was a little bit funny, like how can't you get to know a guy like him, and at least before you go ahead and make a sales pitch, you definitely need to have a little bit of ideas, right, regarding
Yep.
whom you're going to do it. So yeah, these are some of the stuffs that I suffered a lot. Truth be told, initially I did the same mistake, but down the line I worked out for myself, and currently I'm helping others to go out and do
Fantastic.
it for themselves.
And let me just ask you before we get into the question, if somebody likes what they hear, likes what you do, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, of course, it's LinkedIn. It's Muhammad Imdadul Islam. If you search on LinkedIn, you will see me, you'll get me. And yes, of course. And there is my contact number is also given over there, how you can reach out to me. And you can also go ahead and get to know what I do. You can see me on LinkedIn. So that
Perfect.
will
Perfect.
speak
So,
all of it.
and I'll have a link in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen. Click on the link and learn more. And I think I want to talk to you more after the show about some ideas that I have for things that we can do together. Anyway,
Yes, sure.
That's exciting.
It'll be an honor. It'll be an honor.
For all the listeners out there, that's part of the benefit of doing a podcast is, of course, bringing great content to you, the listener. But it's also about the relationship that we get to develop as
Definitely.
as I bring people on the show. Well,
Definitely.
now it's time to share your worst investment ever. And since no one ever goes into their worst investment thinking it will be, tell us a bit about the circumstances leading up to it, and then tell us your story.
Okay, now that's really a very tough question to answer, but yes, of course. So what is happening that since my childhood, if I can recall myself, I have been a little bit rough and tough, not so agreeing, like not of course in a bad way, but I was very sporty. I used to play cricket very well, and at the same time I used to go clubs, of course not nightclubs, but pool club, billiard one. I used to be a very good billiard player. Okay, when I was in school, that's although a little early, and I did everything but study well. Okay, so and that's real true. And I can still remember I used to be the 62nd student of the 64 student when I was in the 10th grade. This is true. This is absolutely true. But what was happening that deep in my mind, I just knew one thing that, of course, I definitely want to get into business. That was for sure. Like, I don't know why it felt me like that. Yeah, I had special fascination for the business world. For back in that, and I didn't know much about the investment, but still I was thinking, I had some idea that yes, if I want to get into business world, if I want to make a lot of money, investment is a great tool. Because how much money can you really make just by working? Of course, investment is a great tool. So that started like hang around in my mind, that thought. So I used to go to meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of my seniors, what they do, how do they go ahead and do it. And down the line I found a guy actually reached out to me. Okay, and he was kind of very known to me. But what was happening that then he invited me to come up with, and he shared one of the store investment opportunity at a company. So that company was involved in some kind of online business. Okay. And truth be told, I didn't really have much idea regarding what they do, but I believe that guy. So what happened that I was very much motivated what they actually shared with me and how I got to how can I multiply my money and everything. So I was very much, convinced with the idea. So I went ahead, I went to home and told my mom that, Mom, I need some money, and I need some very good money, of course, not a small one, because the more money I can invest, the more money, the more return I can actually go out and generate for myself. Then actually what happened that since I was the eldest son and my mom loves me very much, still she loves me a lot. So she gave me, 2 lakh stack over here in Bangladesh tech. So that's a 6-figure amount. And back 10 years back, what I'm saying, and back in that time, I used to be in the 10th grade, by the way, I was very young. So what was happening that I invested that money. I took the money from my mom, and she actually gave it to me. And once I asked her, I invested into the money. So the company went well for a couple of months. I got some return in the first month and the second month. And suddenly it started paying me returns. They were saying that, okay, there are some problems, as what happens that, of course, now the all business goes the same way in all the months or all the time. So they're saying, okay, please hold on for a while and we will go ahead and start giving you, start paying your returns. So I was like, okay, fine. Then a little while went ahead, and what happened that all on a sudden, I got to understand that I was scammed. The company was shut down. I went to visit their office after a while, and I saw that the office was locked down. Like, it was locked. So yeah, like that's the thing. So you can say that this was one of the worst investment I can say I had, and it was just a scam. It was not even investment.
Yeah.
Scam.
And let me ask you, when you
Sure.
went to their office that you realized it was a scam, or did you already suspect that it was a scam, or when did you really realize it was a scam?
Okay. Well, I after a while when I went to their office, it was locked. So what happened that I tried to contact some of the people. Okay,
Mm.
and they were not answering my phone. Some of the staff's phone were actually switched off, and gradually I contacted some of the people who invested like me. So yeah, they were also talking the same stuff. Okay, so like yeah, they are out of control. So and after a while, we got some news in the newspaper as well. So they
Uh,
are like they scammed.
so tell me, what did you learn from this experience?
I got, a very great lesson, undoubtedly, because first of all, it was not investment. So why it was not even investment? Because in order to come up with an investment, you definitely need to learn what you are investing in. That means the business. So I had literally no idea what they do in business, how they make money, and how are my money going to generate return for myself and for the company as well. Okay, so this is what I have learned, that yes, in order to make an investment, you definitely need to learn about the business. That's the one thing you gotta analyze, you gotta learn, or whatever I said, just learn the business.
And that's a major lesson for all the listeners too. It's kind of the number one mistake that people make is they fail to do their research. So
yes,
this is a great lesson. Maybe I'll share a couple things that I wrote down while you were talking.
Yes, please.
One of the things that I wrote down was the words, "He reached out to me." And one of the things that I always tell people is never invest in something that somebody has contacted you about investing in.
Okay.
In other words, ideally, you want to originate your own ideas of what you're investing in.
Yes.
Now, people say, well, how is that? How am I going to do that if I don't know that much? My point is that, I just want to raise a red flag to people that when people are calling you, they're calling you, it's not talking about, your best friend, but I'm talking about a stranger or someone you may know a little bit, calling you, telling you to invest in this or that, or has an idea. Stop, because that is usually the first way that it starts to happen. The second thing is that, these people are experts at playing on your emotion, and they know how to do it so well. And you were describing how you were so hungry as a young guy.
Yeah.
You saw the opportunity and you thought, I got to take it. This is the way we do business, and that's where you have the reason why you often want to hang up, as people call me and say, I want to tell you about this investment opportunity. And I just say, I let them talk for a few minutes or a minute or whatever with their pitch. And I just say, I'm not interested. Please never call me again. And please remove me from your list.
Okay.
And I say that the exact same thing every time, not mean or anything. And then the third thing is that I wrote down is borrow money. When you borrow money, it's like the pain happens twice. First, the pain of losing, and then the pain of having to deal with the person that you borrowed the money from.
It's true.
And I can only imagine, what it felt like to go back and tell your mom.
Like it was really, really very horrible. My mom was also very sad, but she was more sad for me because, at this very early age, I had a setback. I lost some good money. But although my mom was like, yeah, truth be told, we were not that rich or that wealthy. That money really mattered a lot for us. Yeah. But still, I lost it. So I was sad, but my mom was even more sad than me. So I can describe in words how it feels. Yeah. So yeah.
So that brings me to my last thing I wrote down, which is you said that there was some return in the first and second month. And one of the things that, for the listeners out there, the way some of these scams work is they do actually pay you. They do show you that the stock price went up or something.
Yes. But
basically that's all to just keep you hooked in and maybe get more money from you if they can. But that usually in a scam case, it confirms your decision was the right decision. Look, they're paying, but in the end, and maybe from a defense perspective, they can say to somebody if they get in trouble, well, we tried to pay, but then it all went bad. So those are the things that I learned from. Is there anything you would add?
Yes, I would just say that, before we come up with some investment, we got to actually learn. And one thing I would love to definitely share that you actually just mentioned, please don't invest just by borrowing money, because that's not your money. And what if you actually lose the money? So yeah.
Yep. So based upon what you learned from this story and what you continue to learn, I want you to think about the young men and women out there that are very hungry to try to, get ahead in life. And there are all kinds of scams going on. What one action would you recommend our listeners take to avoid suffering the same fate?
It's all about actually learning about before knowing what you actually gonna do before you actually do it. Okay. because it's really very important, because you see that most of the time we go out of our emotion that I actually mentioned, that yes, out of emotional stuff. So maybe some of our friend or our colleague just said something, we have blind faith on them, and we start start doing it, investing in it and everything. Okay. But I would just recommend that please have at least a basic idea before you do anything. It's not about just investment, it's about in everything in life.
Mm, great advice. Well, listeners, there you have it. Another story of loss to keep you winning. And my number one goal for the next 12 months is to help you, my listener, reduce risk and increase return in your life. To achieve this, I've created our community, myworstinvestmentever.com. And when you join, you get that special discount on the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp. Let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
What is your number one goal for the next 12 months?
Well, as you have already mentioned, that I'm currently working in personal branding, social selling, and employee advocacy stuff. So what I want to do is that in the next 12 months, I want to reach out to more. I want to go ahead and add value to more people in this regard to help them grow their personal brand. Of course, in the accounting, finance, and real estate industry, these are my core areas, or these are my core industry to work in. And I'm trying to currently help the financial institutions over here in Bangladesh to leverage their employees for their branding and marketing stuff. So yeah, that's the real thing. So I'm currently focused more on doing it more in the next 12 months.
Well, fantastic. And for the listeners out there, I'll have the link to his LinkedIn so that you can go and learn more about that. And, as I always say on this show, when people come on the show, there's many people that I invite on the show and they refuse. They don't want to talk about their worst investment. But I always say that when someone's willing to identify their worst investment, talk about what they learned from it, that's the type of person I want to do business with. Now, as we conclude, Imdad, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. And on behalf,
It's an honor.
yeah, on behalf of A Stotts Academy, I hereby award you alumni status for turning your worst investment ever into your best teaching moment. Do you have any parting words for our audience?
The last thing I want to say is that you are your best investment. Okay, the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. It can be in your health, it can be in your knowledge, it can be whatever, but it's all about you. So please never feel, never get yourself back to invest in yourself, and the rest of the investment you can of course make very well.
I love that. And that's a wrap on another great story to help us create, grow, and protect our wealth. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stott, saying, I'll see you on the upside.